Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for coming out this evening for our state legislator candidate forum. I think this is going to be a good event. Appreciate the candidates coming out. Would you help me welcome and show our appreciation to the candidates for being here? We're going to give the candidates 2 minutes each to introduce themselves. Then we'll start the questioning. I have a series of 4 questions. We'll give the candidates 2 minutes to answer each question. They have been given the questions ahead of time so that we had a fair or an even playing field. And then if we have enough time, I'll open it up and I'll take your questions from the audience directly. If I call on you, please get to your question, and please make your question something that applies to all the candidates and not just simply to one candidate. Any questions from the candidates? We've got one mic, if you would, pass it up and down. And with that, let me first of all express my appreciation to Kelly Butler. She's been helping me quite a bit. My wife, Denny Davis, who's been my timekeeper for forever. Jeanette Laby is also a key member in the Governmental Affairs Committee. And to Eric Price from Rogue Creative, a great audiovisual company, and I encourage you to use them if you have an event. And with that, anything you need? All right, let's get started.
Did you warn them that there's going to be a bell?
All right, candidates, let's get started. We'll start with the first question, which has to do with, please,
do an intro?
introduction. Those of you know, I skipped. So I added a checklist so I can keep track of who did it. I didn't put one above for that. Thank you, I appreciate that. Go ahead.
For those of you that do not know me, I'm Jeff Klemp. So I've been, from a family perspective, we've been around 5 generations. So we've been here before a state was a state. Some of you have heard the spiel, but I'll just touch on it briefly. I was raised on an Angus farm, kind of out near Easton, and went through the Leavenworth school system. I went to Xavier and then switched over and graduated from Leavenworth High. I have an undergrad in economics at the University of Kansas, whose football team is horrible this year. And I have a master's in business administration from Baker University just down the road in Baldwin. So my wife and I, about 15 years ago, we bought a distressed business here in town. And with hard work and determination, we've turned that around. So we feel the pain of property tax. We feel the pain of writing checks and having to make sure we have enough money in the account and all those things that create the pain that we're experiencing currently. So when I look at that, it's we've turned that business around. It's, the first 6 years we were, struggling to make that work, and then we were able to turn that around, and we're one of the largest movers of our military in the country globally. So we're proud of that fact, and we have a lot of folks, whether we've hired thousands over the last 15 years, from second chance felons to retired military. So we have a really unique mix of folks, and I think we're a good petri dish for what we can do better as a community. And we're very immersed in the community on the side of mental health and other types of things where we get really involved. So that's helpful on the time there. So I just want to say I'm excited to be here. I think we have some strong differences of opinion between myself and the incumbent, and I think we can share those and express those. And here tonight we'll talk about how we would make decisions and bring new businesses into our community. So I look forward to chatting with you.
So I'm Senator Jeff Pittman. I am the sitting senator. I'm one term in. I was boy, that was quick. Are you ready? Yeah. Okay. So I was 2 terms of a House rep before that. I grew up here in Leavenworth. Went to West Junior High when it was a junior high. Graduated from high school here. My wife, Holly, graduated from high school here. We got 3 kids. I've got a son in banking right now, and I've got a daughter who was just recently had the pleasure of earning the Miss USA Kansas. I'm pretty proud of that. And then my daughter's still here at Warren. So public school has done me well. I'm a big supporter of public schools. I took that on, and I went to MIT to get a supply chain engineering degree. I was in the technology industry, and I have my MBA from Oxford. And I came back here to raise my family. My job is in supply chain management. I work for a software company. We do really neat things with algorithms and put processes in place, and our clients are like Procter & Gamble, Kraft Foods, Hostess Foods down the road. We've got hundreds and hundreds of clients, and we've saved them millions and millions, if not hundreds of millions of dollars each. And I bring that to the Capitol. We deal with disruption in supply chain that helps companies succeed. Big systems, complex systems, and that's what I bring, is a knowledge of how to work with big systems, with people, with processes, and be successful in that environment. I'm on the Ways and Means, which is the Budget Committee. I'm on the Cybersecurity committees, where we've fought against China and Russia, and they're a real threat to us every day, working with cybersecurity. I've been on the Agriculture Committee, where I've learned about 53% of our state economy. I'm here, and I've been endorsed by real groups of real people. That's the police, the firefighters, the teachers, the regional businesses and BizPAC, the Humane Society, the realtors. These are organizations of real people who see what I can do for our community, how I work across the aisle, and how I get results at our state level. Look forward to this forum. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Tim Johnson. I serve the 38th District, which is down in Basehor, Linwood, and comes up to now the west side here of Leavenworth. I have had 2 terms in the House, and I have really enjoyed what I do. Now, as a career, I started off in the criminal justice field, 31 years. I was an undersheriff in Wyandotte County, later a chief of police in another jurisdiction. And so I've had experience at county, city, and also at the state level, because I came back here to Leavenworth and served as a special investigator for child abuse. Very important to me, and those were some of the areas that I've served in. Have a couple degrees, that's all well and good, but I have developed a lot of little contacts in Topeka, and that's what's going to make me a big help to this community. Talk to our Speaker of the House. I'm under consideration to chair the Corrections and Juvenile Justice Committees if I am reelected. That is a critical committee here in our county with our corrections industry and with what we need to do. And it also allows me to work with juveniles. So that is an important thing. I share that also that I have a strong Army background. This little book I've got is called The Little Jeep Who Couldn't Go Beep, and I wrote it, or I helped my cousin write it. It's about a little Jeep. It was in a barn. Nobody liked it anymore. And a Vietnam veteran comes through and finds it there, takes it home, and he rebuilds it. And that little Jeep finally gets to come back and go beep, beep, beep. But it also got rid of the PTSD that he had. And so I've been sharing that around the community. My own son leaves next Tuesday for his 4th term. This gentleman is also a hero from Afghanistan, and I know that because just tonight he told me he served in the same spot my son does. I'm proud of you. That makes him a hero. Hope you'll vote for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Hello, everybody. I'd like to thank the Chamber and everyone for attending, and I see some old faces here. I'm Richard Paz, and I'm running for the House District 38. And why I'm running ostensibly, how it started was the property tax question. Why were our property taxes skyrocketing? So instead of rushing to the county to chew them out a new one, like the supermajority does, I actually researched and read. Tim calls me an academic. Guilty. I actually read the legislation, read the history, and try to understand how we got here. Not only Kansas, but America, because this tax situation happened in the 60s and 70s as well. And so I went through it that way to find out what we could do. We have a large surplus of $3 billion. Why is that not being used to help out folks? Because I'm knocking doors, folks. I'm knocking about 1,000 doors already. And the folks I talk to are saying, man, I think I have to move. And I'm thinking, are they free? Are we freer for that? No. So I would like to bring it back. You know, people say, well, we'll make the country great again, but it was in the 70s. It peaked out. But there are reasons why that happened. And so I think here we have so much potential with the people. The greatest thing about running is meeting all the wonderful people and the enormous talent that we have here that's sitting here, waiting to be unleashed to do great things. And we can do that. But we have a few issues we have to get through, and I want to be the one to help do that. Because I've received an awesome education in the Army, but also, like you can see colonels everywhere here, we received a lot. Much was asked of us, but much was given. And so I'm thinking, why is that not good enough for everyday Kansans? We're all one team, folks. That's the way I look at it. And Kansas has helped me and my family, and I feel a debt of public service to help Kansans back. So thank you very much.
Hi, my name's Pat Proctor. I know a lot of you, but I don't know all of you, so I'll take a minute to tell you a little bit about myself. So I spent 25 years in the Army. I started out enlisted, got a scholarship, went to Purdue University, got a mechanical engineering degree, and came back in as an artillery lieutenant and did that for the rest of my 25-year career, including tours in Iraq and Afghanistan. I'm also a business owner. Me and my beautiful wife own the Bon Thai restaurant here, and we also have one in Manhattan. And I'm also a tenure-track professor in the Homeland Security program at Wichita State University. I made a deal with them, so I'm down there a day a week. I got all my classes jammed in one day. I teach in the Homeland Security program, but I have a PhD in history from K-State, so I also teach some history, and I also teach some security studies for the school. It's been my honor to serve you as your state representative, but this was totally not my life plan. I know there are a lot of people, they've known their whole lives they were going to serve as an elected representative. I am not one of those people. I am serving to get some very specific things done for Leavenworth. We got to lower our property taxes so we can bring people back and we can make it cheaper to own and run a business. We've got to keep our families safe amid this border crisis that we have that's flooding our streets with fentanyl. We've got to stand with our corrections officers and our veterans so that they'll stay here in our community and not go right across the bridge to Platte City where it's cheaper to live and work over here. And we've got to bring jobs and opportunity back to Leavenworth by doing all those things, but also enticing more businesses to come here to our district and to our county and to our state. We have the honor of your vote to continue to serve you. I'm going to go right back to work doing that, keeping my word, and getting results for Leavenworth.
Good evening. I'm Aimee Bateman. I'm running for the 41st House seat. So our story, it was, as a lot of families in this town, a military family, but it's very quickly being consumed by our story now as Kansas business owners and growing that. But we owe that to our story as a military family. So my husband and I were commissioned, both West Point graduates in 2000, and then everything changed. So I deployed to Iraq, I deployed to Afghanistan, and my 21 years on active duty, I dealt with trauma, loss, chaos, austerity, and now I get to do that every day as a business owner, which is... So there's some of my fellow small business owners in the room, and it's an endeavor that really takes all of your heart and soul and dedication, and for us, every little bit of our net worth in this community, and we are so proud of that, and we want to see other people be able to thrive and grow in this community, and we know it can happen. We've done it, and we have ideas and proposals of how we can empower our local business owners and our veteran community. It is such a good fit, truly. If you can, everything we learned in the military about hard work and dedication and standing operating procedures and best practices and how to lead and mentor and train and create a great, healthy culture for our people, if we bring that into our business community, which we have here and what I'm so thankful for, this business, we literally had the world of options available to us after my retirement from the military, and we picked here. We picked here because we felt that sense of community, and we saw the opportunities that are here, and we've been raised up by our fellow business owners and the Chamber and Main Street and all the other things that this community offers. So I really appreciate being here tonight. Thank you for putting on this forum, and I look forward to the questions.
Go to the first question. I'm going to start down with Aimee since she has the microphone. Question number 1 has to do with taxes. SB 1 brought tax relief regarding sales, property, and income tax, mostly to individuals. Without reiterating the details of SB 1, what do you see as the next step for tax relief specifically for small and medium-sized businesses? Please be as detailed as possible.
Sure. In 2 minutes, I'll give all the detail I can. So tax credits. So I'll give the bottom line. We need to do things to incentivize people to open, grow, and and see their businesses thrive in this community. So we need to focus on things that are going to spurn action. So tax credits, and one of the thoughts that I think would really help this community is much of the 41st district, in our case, is in this neighborhood revitalization district. And there are tax incentives. There are plenty. One of the biggest tax incentives we have for bringing business to Kansas is the PEAK, the prioritizing employment. What is it? Access, that's it in Kansas. The prioritizing employment access in Kansas. And what's that done is that has bought some really, really big manufacturing jobs because that tax credit, that incentive is only available to certain coded jobs. If we could have a tax credit and an incentive like that that's coded for our area, for our neighborhood revitalization committees, then that means all of my fellow business owners could benefit for something like that. And we could continue to grow. So all of the banks, the cleaning companies, the restaurants, the professional services company like we have, we want to see tax credits and other things that will incentivize people to bring business into Leavenworth and be able to grow and thrive is also going to be credits for things like healthcare, childcare. So at the end of the day, those are some of the biggest things that I think we can do to bring in some credits, and that will. Yes, it's great that we have jobs from Panasonic. Yes, it's great that we've had a lot of big manufacturing jobs and big ag jobs come to Kansas, but we need to do things that are actually going to target those small and medium-sized businesses. And where do they exist? They exist in our downtown business communities. So that's where the targeted credits should be.
So small business in Leavenworth is primarily hospitality, services and retail, and then light manufacturing. And all those businesses need people. And so if we drive all the people out of Leavenworth County, that we're not going to have the businesses. So the best way that we can help the businesses is by hanging on to the people. The census numbers came out for Kansas by city the other day. We are number 13 from the bottom out of 630 cities in the state of Kansas for population growth. We have negative population growth because our property taxes are driving everybody out of the state, and we have a bridge right there where they can go right across the river, they can live in Platte County, live for less money, and work over here, or work in Kansas City and never come back across the river again. So what I've been working on and the things that we need to do are about reversing that trend. That's why I was thrilled to be able to get to the governor's desk this year a bill that would have provided property tax relief for disabled veterans and seniors. Fortunately, Governor vetoed that. I'm going to go right back to work on that next year, and I've got a promise that that's going to be first in the hopper next year if I'm able to go back. We sent the governor 3 times last year a mill levy cut of the state mill levy, and she vetoed it 3 times, and unfortunately the Democrats upheld her veto. Even though it was a unanimous bill when we sent it to her one of those times and nearly unanimous another time. But the big way to fix our property taxes so we can get people to stay here instead of fleeing the county and fleeing the state is a valuation cap. We got it done in the Senate this year. It got over to the House, and farmers and ranchers had issues because they're afraid it was going to shift the property tax burden from homeowners to those folks. Well, I'm endorsed by the Kansas Livestock Association. I'm endorsed by Kansas Farm Bureau. I'm going to work with them. I'm going to get that bill fixed. I'm going to get our property values capped.
I just want to note on population. Overall, Kansas has a net out migration, but I checked the census data. That's not true for Leavenworth County. It's 2.2% growth. If you come down to 38 district, it's growing, folks. Baser, yeah, it's huge. It's the residential Levittown of Kansas. It's growing. But the problem is, and here's where I disagree with the county commissioners, residential growth uses more resources than it provides in revenues. So it needs to be denser growth. There's some studies out in Dallas, Fort Worth that are saying, hey, we're not going to be able to maintain our tax viability here because, especially the way we're spread out, right? 2.5 acres on the zoning. Yeah, that's not going to pay the bills, folks, because you got your assessments, right? The schools, oh yeah, 50+% for me. So we need denser housing. But getting back to the tax question, is we do have programs already in Kansas. One's called the Rural Opportunity Zones, the ROZ. And the stipulation, though, is you have to be a county of 40,000 or less. And we know we're at 80,000, right? But I think that's too close-minded. We can do opportunity zones, economic opportunity zones for multiple things. Healthcare. Healthcare is an emerging sector. Agritourism. I know we're getting grants. I know Pat talked about Wendland Farms, or if you saw on his Facebook, that's a great thing. But Kansas is too stingy with that. We need to plow money into that and look at taxation in forms of investment. So you get tax credits, like Aimee mentioned, first 5 years, and also debt forgiveness for loans for those young folks coming in who are saddled with debt, or physicians, for example, so we can then fill the gap with businesses that give back to the community. So we have the programs there. We just need to tweak them and also design for what Leavenworth folks want to see, right? Tyson Chicken, ring a bell? So we want to make sure that the growth is commensurate with what you believe where we should go.
Well, taxes. It did not go the way I wanted. We worked hard. I worked hard. We argued. We gave information. We shared. And I thought 3 times we've made a difference. In the end, we could not override the veto. But we did work together, and I just share this. This is from your Governor Kelly, says, the comprehensive tax cuts package provides long overdue relief for all Kansans. We're putting more money back into their pockets while ensuring we can continue fully funding our schools, roads, bridges, and other essential services. The Democrat governor was pleased with that. It is a bill that made a difference. I won't read anymore because there's a comment from one of our state senators in this district, but I'll leave him. We worked hard. Now, I will tell you, I've testified before 2 different committees on tax breaks. And I spoke, gave my testimony about, as a senior, how it had caused me to sell my house, downsize, because I can't afford it. I also read the testimony of Richard for when he appeared. What is Janice faced?
It means you say one thing but do another.
Oh, okay. I have never seen a term. You can't talk fancy words to legislators. You do. I had to go. Okay. I looked at his testimony and my testimony. We're the same. We were both up there fighting. And I'm going to continue to fight for that because that is critical, and it's going to have to be changing how we classify your property values. If we don't change that, every time your property values go up with inflation that was caused by the presidential administration, you're going to have higher taxes. Thank you.
Since we are with the Chamber of Commerce and the question is about how we're going to incentivize businesses in the future with tax incentives, specifically on this question, I want to point back to some of the things that we have done that are going to come into effect very soon. There's a new bill, it's called the Apex bill. It was the reason Panasonic came here. Never has it been done in any other state like it's been done here in Kansas. I was on the Commerce Committee. We crafted that bill. It includes incentives for the big company, but also, remember my supply chain background, for those suppliers that come in. 5 major suppliers are going to get incentives to come to Kansas to do manufacturing and high-end procurement. But that's not all. One of the things I insisted on when I was in that committee working on that bill was that we also, if we're going to give this incentive to one big company, who else should make out? All of you owning businesses. We put in place, for every Apex bill that went down, 1% absolute value and reduction in the corporate tax for every small and medium-sized business. That's huge. That's incentivization. When we talk about capping of the property tax evaluation, that was my bill. I went in and researched that. I said, mine has double digits 3 times in a row. I went in and did the research. I did the hard things. I do the hard things. It was changed. My tax chair is a strong-minded woman. She put in the businesses and the farms. We got it through the Senate. We need to take those farms out. They've got a really sweet deal already. We can make that happen. We have star bonds, also unique to Kansas, a sales tax way of borrowing money that gets paid back via the new sales tax that's generated. That's going to bring the Chiefs' eye hope to our district, and we're going to talk about what that means for economic development for us. Locally, I think we need to have some public-private partnerships. I would not be opposed, and I think it's a good idea that we have a 1-year, some kind of incentivization, whether tax breaks or an actual fund to help veterans who are starting out and being entrepreneurs in our community. Thank you so much.
So with billing still in our coffers in Topeka, I think we should spend 2025 legislative session working on tax relief that does more. It was unfortunate that we had the bill that we did. Advancing tax relief for small and medium-sized businesses could involve restructuring the tax code and other specific incentives and deductions tailored to a business's unique needs. We already do this at times, but this may include expanding tax credits and hiring and training employees and exploring local and statewide beneficial financing for business capital expenditures. These incentive opportunities should not be a struggle for approval. These creative options encourage workforce development because we are talking about small businesses today and mid-sized businesses. They would reduce operational costs, allowing small businesses to focus on what matters. Also exploring the feasibility of a tiered tax rate system on businesses based on size and revenue. Allowing smaller enterprises to benefit from reduced tax rates while still contributing to the state economy. Such measures would promote small business growth and sustainability. Finally, I'm also advocating for a review with recommendations of the business appraisal process. The valuations process is driven in 3 ways, especially for businesses. It's the rebuild cost is where they focus their energy. When inflation is high, the valuation is also driven by excessive inflation. So the value is propped up on a business, causing excessive cost. The results in valuation increases that are not sustainable. We should look at inflation adjustment to the formula so that the small businesses can continue to thrive and versus being crippled by out-of-control taxes. Thank you.
Question number 2 has to do with economic development. We frequently hear rhetoric about returning jobs and workers' dilemma. What will you do to see real economic development in Leavenworth County in terms of A, creating the right conditions for businesses to grow and expand, and B, ensuring there is a talented and ready workforce?
Yeah, thanks. Oh, I've touched on that on the first part, is to provide the tax incentives already. We can do that. We can target that. We have to tweak the bills, though, and understand how that works in producing the businesses we want. But the question, I guess, for all of you is, what businesses do you want? Or if we got together, what would the ideal outcome looks like? Instead of just saying tax incentive, this and that, that's sort of like random. So again, back to the agriculture. I guess first let me touch transportation. The good news is, or the bad news is, we're not near enough I-70. But the good news is we're not near enough I-70. So you have to understand why that matters. I know Jeff Kemp's talked about the system of being near a transportation hub matters. And if you look at the development of urban Kansas, that's how it came about. And in some cases, like Legends, I believe, it took time even then. But the transportation hubs are critical. You have to build the infrastructure for whatever businesses. And if you want to go retail heavy, yes. If you want to go industrial, we have the Panasonic plant. But again, if we can harness the intrinsic qualities of Leavenworth, I live in the rural county. I mean, the rural part's like just 5-6 miles away, you know? So it's not either or. We have everything. It's a gorgeous place to live, but I know folks want to keep it a certain way. So would an agribusiness, agritourism approach work. It would draw in a lot of folks, but then they would go home. And I know some might like that. I have my prejudice towards that. But if you think about it, that could be a way, because pre-Prohibition, we had hundreds and hundreds of wineries. The stock here in the Midwest helped rejuvenate Europe's stock way back when. So they can, after they had a blight over there. So if we want to be Sonoma Valley, California, without the California, we could do that.
Economic development. We have some difference from other counties. We have so much land that belongs to the federal government, both at the fort, the prison, then we have a lot of territory. We've taken away quite a bit of those opportunities. For us in this area, the K7 corridor is critical. I also know that we've had some really good discussion, and I personally support adding a roadway across the river to the 152 to make transportation in there. I think that is one of the keys. And to do that, we're going to have to work with the federal government, and I'm very thankful that I have such a good relationship with Senator Marshall and Senator Moran, and also now with who I hope will be our next congressman from this area, because that's where the money for that access area is really going to have to come, not from Leavenworth County. I will support that. We know we can make a difference. This last year, I was asked to help one of our local businesses. It came from your city, well, from Ted, et cetera, to help a winery. We got that through, and it took a lot of very fine finesse to work that through, but we made it happen. But here's something that you don't know. The owner of that particular place, winery, is going to be one of our state representatives. In his home district, he went and ran, and he has no opponent. We're going to have a 5th legislator supporting our Leavenworth County because he works here with his business. I think that's awesome, and it shows what we can do. We can get some things done here in Leavenworth County. Thank you.
Thanks, Tim. So we're talking about economic development in the state, and we're also talking about it in our county, right? And we got to go back. When I first started, we were in a state of disrepair, meaning our budget was down to zero almost in the state budget. The Brownback tax experiment put in place by current leadership in the Senate, current House leadership as well, and they weren't backing off of it. We had to fix that. Part of what we fixed, though, was there was a march to zero, and all those realtors out there, we're going to have the interest on mortgages not be tax deductible anymore, and we were able to reverse that. So when we talk about economic development, it's more than just the retail sector. When we talk about economic development, it is a little bit about manufacturing and bringing that $20 billion that have been invested because our governor invested in the Department of Commerce and all the programs throughout the counties and regions to bring $20 billion of investment over the last 6 years. That's huge. That's going to help us here. We also have the STAR bonds. I mentioned that. We have STAR bonds. We here in Leavenworth, if we want higher retail, one of the things we put in place was we put an internet sales tax on internet sales. People were buying and bypassing our local retailers because they could get it cheaper, tax-free. But to get retail to work, no matter what tax incentive you put in it, you need people in the stores. You need boots in the doors. And to do that, we can become a tourism center. We have the potential to bring the Chiefs over here, the Royals. We've got the American Royal, one of the preeminent rodeos, as well as other kinds of facilities. And I myself worked across the aisle to save the state $9.5 million to start just recently this Lansing Prison Museum, which will bring business here. Our World Cup money and finance that we put in place that's going to come to 2026 that will bring World Cup here, that's in jeopardy. I'm going to continue to work for that so that we become the tourism area, the tourist destination, so that our retailers can thrive. Thank you.
As a small business owner, I talked a little bit earlier about the struggles that we have in our community, and it is about bringing people here and keeping people here. And I think we forget that when we want to talk about the chiefs and other things and other large groups that are coming here. So what's a little fun fact for you they may not know is for three decades, I've had an engineering consulting firm that specializes in supply chain. So we want to talk about supply chain. I fix computer problems with supply chains. So when we're trying to decide where do we put a 1 million square foot facility, we have a great access to different locations around the United States on where we're going to put a facility or a manufacturing facility. I cut my teeth at Hallmark Cards and manufacture in Topeka. So I look at that and I say, what can we do to bring people back to our community? And I do touch on, as Rich mentioned, the ability to have access to a major highway artery, a transportation artery. However, if you create that road, they may come, but they're not going to come if we have high crime. They're not going to come if we're not competitive from a tax perspective. And right now, we're the 12th highest taxing state in the country. Things are broken, and we sit here and we want to have this smoke and mirrors discussion around how good it is. But people are looking to go across the river, as Pat mentioned, because it's a much better opportunity. Just on the news, they just lowered their property tax to 1 cent. How'd they get that accomplished? Well, it drives people across the river from our military to reside there, or they pass Leavenworth and they go out south, as we just talked about. So that access to Kansas City, access to a major highway artery, creates an environment that starts there. But it doesn't stop there because we have to create an environment that invites people in. We have a population issue that we talked about. We don't have enough people coming up the ranks to fill in for the jobs that are currently here. So we have to figure out how do we entice people to come into our community and stay here. And you do that through creating a culture that is inviting, and that's one of the things we have to work on. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to get back on remember the question here. So, returning jobs and workers to Leavenworth, right? So creating the right conditions to grow and expand. So again, I'm really proud that we've done that. We have the workers, we have the industry, we have the space to grow, sort of. Okay, but I'm very proud. We've built the biggest law firm in the county in less than 2 years. My business went from 1 employee to 2 to 7 to now 16 going on, or 15 going on 16 and 17 in the next month. But the only reason we were able to do that is because we had a physical footprint that we were able to expand. That was step one. I had to find a place to expand to in order to grow the business. Fortunately, we were able to buy a 19,000 square foot building on Delaware that was pretty well maintained. We had to put on a new roof, we had to put new plumbing, but I could move in and start growing and hiring and building that culture that we're all speaking about. We know how important that is. But the problem is, and especially, again, we're going back to what can we do for Leavenworth? What do we do to keep people here and grow businesses here? We have to empower the local communities, the local government, and one thing we cannot do is tell our municipalities how to do that and how to grow their businesses, because again, you need the space. And so one thing that I would absolutely not support, that I'm very disappointed that was supported by Representatives Proctor, Neely, Johnson, and Bueller, is they voted for House Bill 2083 in 2023. And this is when I started thinking about even, the idea of running for office and doing something at the state level, because that bill said it was a bill to tell municipalities that they were prohibited from putting, penalties on vacant buildings in their towns. Prohibited. That is against the rule of law and order. That's against our Constitution. That's against home rule, and that's against the idea that we should be empowering down to our local communities that they know how to grow their businesses. They know what we need. They know what is going to keep people there and help businesses grow and thrive. So the bottom line is we need to treat our workers well. We need to encourage an environment where people are going to want to work, and we have to give them the space to do that.
So you ask, how are we going to bring jobs and opportunity back to Leavenworth? Well, you know what? I've been doing it. First of all, I did support the Apex bill that Senator Pittman talked about, which is bringing 4,000 jobs right across the river to DeSoto, plus all their suppliers that are going to settle in the area. And I know one supplier from Japan's already moving here. But right here in Leavenworth, I've been trying to do exactly what my opponent just described, which is getting these buildings downtown back into service. Her husband came to me a couple years ago with an idea, a list of things that we could do in order to make it economically viable to get all these old buildings back into service. I'm a Republican, they're Democrats, but good ideas don't have a party. And he's a constituent, so I took that list to Topeka, I turned that list into a bill, I gathered up a coalition of industry partners and legislators, and I got that passed that year. And it's already creating jobs here in Leavenworth. The Wilcott Brewing, that used to be a Club Venom for 10 years with rain coming through the ceiling and flooding the basement of every building in the block. And now it's a thriving business. He's actually closed his business in Holton so that he can grow the business here. But we also got to tap the workforce that we have here that is not employed. I co-sponsored a bill to allow the spouses of service members, and veterans to carry their certifications from other states here to Kansas, put them right to work without having to go through a bunch of red tape so that they can join our workforce. I also fought the governor when she wanted to remove the work requirements from food stamps. And I supported the bill that requires job training for anybody on food stamps who's working less than 30 hours a week. If they can't get a job for 30 hours a week in this economy, we need to get them trained so they can get a job, they can start growing their lives, growing their futures, and growing our economy.
No, we're not going to have Democrats all starting first. You got to flip it up. I was going to say.
It's just fine.
Oh, I got it.
Yeah.
I'd like to stick on the economic development by focusing on transportation that supports it.
You going to skip 3?
Yeah, we need to go to 3.
It's fine if you want to.
You're going to throw me off. Three's a good one.
So adequate access to businesses is essential for economic success. The Chamber, the Leavenworth County Commission, and the city governments endorse the recommendations defined in the report entitled Priorities for Progress, Connecting Community Opportunities. How will you work with the funding sources such as MARC and KDOT and U.S. Department of Transportation to further target projects for Leavenworth County? Please be specific.
Jumped a question over, but that's okay. So I will establish partnerships because I'm not in the Senate today. So I have to establish those relationships, many I've already begun, with MARC, Mid-America Regional Council, Kansas Department of Transportation, and the U.S. Department of Transportation, by initiating direct communication and building relationships with key stakeholders. As a small businessman and participating in large businesses, we know how to communicate and have those conversations. Sometimes those can be tough conversations. Having regular discussions with leadership to highlight community infrastructure needs should be a top priority for all of us up here. I do believe that infrastructure is a core function of government. We want good infrastructure, and having a good network of highways and roads helps attract economic investment, but it doesn't stop there. Economic development, at the end of the day, we need to attract people here. We need to sell Kansas's story and make people want to move here. And I touched on earlier a declining population. What do we have to do to be competitive? The cost of living has to be affordable. There have to be things, there are things that Kansas does well, but there's a lot that makes us not competitive today. I intend to work to change that and ensure we have an environment that's respected and a community that's respected, and that's all I have on that topic.
So when it comes to transportation, I can't help but go back to, once again, when I started this whole journey inside of service to our community in this role as a rep, we were borrowing from the Bank of KDOT incessantly to pay our bills. So we were not fixing up roads at that point in time. If we had not fixed that situation, we would not be able to invest in our roads today. And I'll repeat, the same people who control the Senate right now put in place those tax plans that brought us to that brink of despair. But now we're better. We were able to, my colleagues included, work on a 10-year plan called the Ike Transportation Plan, in which we were to take all those backlogged transportation plans and put them into the hopper and then advocate for more. I was able to work with, on the Transportation Committee, get the Centennial Bridge on there, and I'll give my representative here in town some props for keeping the fire under the feet in KDOT, because that's what we need to do as legislators, is keep it hot. Make sure our voices are there. When it came to that, we now have a plan. Are we getting pushback from Missouri? Is there some slowness on the railroads that are kind of dragging their feet? Yes. But when we look at transportation across the water, we got to take that into account. I support an Eastern Gateway Bridge, but it's more of a 10-year plan right now. We need to get that thing shovel-ready so that when we get our 10-year plan in place, again in 2029, we're working on it. I was able to bring $35 million for K5 to get us a better attachment. It's in place and it's moving forward. I'm working with Baser. They've got some KDOT issues. That's what we do. We work with local entities. We say, what can we do to help you out? I do that. I work with my locals to say, what do we need to do to help your transportation needs? I'm proud to have done it. We still have more to do. I'm going to bring the ability to work with the locals, the state, and hopefully the federal folks to help improve our transportation continually in the future.
Thank you for that comment about problems with KDOT. What is it with that intersection at K7 and Parallel? Does anybody understand that? I'm sorry, I live just down the street. Now, it's technically not in my district because that's the border. When I saw that, I thought, who designed that? I don't know. And what's with that roundabout in the middle of Baser now that would, I'm sorry, I got distracted there. KDOT has been very difficult to work with in Topeka. That is a fact. Of all the agencies that we deal with, has been the most difficult. You're right, we need to work there. But there is hope. There is hope that we can get these projects. I really do believe in that K7 corridor. And for those of us who worked so hard to get the veterans home built our first year, it belonged here in Leavenworth on K7 between Kansas City, Kansas, and Leavenworth up by the VA. It belonged here. And the governor, for political reasons, chose to put it in Topeka. That was our veterans home. And that would have changed transportation issues. Now, I do know from contacting Kansas City, Kansas, that with the STAR bonds and with the attention to producing a stadium location, K7 will be improved if it comes over here. The areas that are being looked at in Wyandotte County are close to that K7 corridor. They will come and will make a difference. Again, we need to look to the federal government. And I have talked with several people about these things, but I've also talked with our Commerce Secretary, Lieutenant Governor. He was here for your event just about 6 months ago. He understands Leavenworth County now, and I appreciate that we can work across the lines, and I think he may be the person that we need to talk to. Thank you.
On this question, I'm going to focus down at and forgive the military metaphors, the tactical level, right? The cities, the county government, because Baser's knocking it out. They've got dedicated grant writers. They got $18 million of grants. They go to all the MARC meetings. They are out there doing their jobs. So well, in fact, that they felt that their membership in the LCDC wasn't worth it anymore. And I'm neutral on that, but that's how I see it. Whereas the county, I don't know if they've been nickel and dime so much that they don't have the dedicated personnel. I know they've been cutting personnel since Brownback and before, but they're getting nickel and dime by the state legislature every time, right? Revenue neutral. And that's a separate 4-hour discussion, folks, but that is used as a political cudgel to starve the governments. But Baser, very nonpartisan, great group, and they are chasing the dollars and getting them and building out a wonderful community and a wonderful civic community and infrastructure. Now, this should also involve the CD2 folks because they're ultimately going to bring a lot of dollars in. You know, Jerry Moran's a master of that, right? But we are public sector heavy. We don't necessarily need more of that. But the funding, I know he's working on the Farm Bill and a few other things, but we have to talk to the CD2 folks on how we integrate ourselves, don't play politics, to help the county and the cities. But as I said, Baser, I'm closer to here than Baser. They are doing a fantastic job making it happen and building a real community.
So in our district, we have here in Leavenworth, welcome to our district. We also have Fort Leavenworth, the prison, and then out into the county up to the Atchison line. And the Centennial Bridge is vital to this region. Fort Leavenworth is the #1 customer for KCI, and they use that bridge every day. And all the folks that are coming into work or coming in for the weekend, once we get our downtown revitalized, we need that bridge. So when I was running to serve you for the first time 4 years ago, I promised you I was going to get that bridge done. And I had heard for years and years and years, it's on a list, it's on the list, it's on the list. Well, when I arrived in Topeka, I discovered it was on the list. It was on the unfunded list. And so I went to work with Representative Lance Neely. We served together on the Transportation Committee, have for 4 years. He's now the vice chair. And we were KDOT's thorn in the side. Whenever a bill came to us, we would tack an amendment on it about our bridge. Whenever they bring a bill to the floor, we'd try to tack an amendment on it about our bridge, until they came to our offices and they asked us, please make it stop. How do we make it stop? And we said, well, you get our bridge into the pipeline. And they put our bridge in the design pipeline. And I was just at a meeting, the Community Executive Forum, with Jen Anders. She's in here somewhere. There you are. And I've got a little news to break on our bridge. The Secretary of Transportation, Calvin Reed, was there. He told us that over the last 12 months, they've been here talking to our community about the design. Some of you have been at the public meetings with me. But they've also been working on getting rights of way secured so that they can start building the bridge. They expect in the next 18 to 20 months they're going to have all the rights of way in hand, and they're going to have the design finished in 20 months, and they expect in 24 to 30 months they're going to be breaking ground on that bridge. And that happened because of persistence, and that happened because of relationships. And I've got both, and that's why we're going to get our bridge.
All right, so again, the question to me, how do we get those funding sources for these targeted projects? And I agree, absolutely, the #1 priority project for the 41st District is absolutely the Centennial Bridge, for all the reasons that Representative Proctor said. I mean, that is a vital, artery corridor access point for our installation, for military readiness, for the thousands and thousands of people that come to our community every year and every day that come from Missouri. So absolutely, that needs to be a priority project. And also the Eastern Byway and some of the other, amazing projects and proposals that have come. And how do we get that funding, though? Like, how do we actually make sure that we take that to the finish line? Is by working with the people who understand the stories of these projects, understand the, what's behind it in the infrastructure, and that's the experts in transportation. I'm sure I'm not shocked to hear that government bureaucrats are hard to deal with. That's not shocking to me that KDOT is difficult to deal with. But you have to work with the people at the local level, which hopefully will get us to our last question, because that's where the best stories are told. The best story wins, always. In government, in life, in litigation. I mean, I represent people for a living. I represent a select few that have legal problems of all different sorts, but that's where you win the day. That's where you're going to get the funding. That's where you're going to get the interest. And it has to be, these are long-term projects. Like we talked about, these are 10-year horizons on some of these projects. So how do you keep the interest, and how are you going to keep the money flowing? You've got to tell the right story. And the way you do that is by leveraging the expertise of the people at the local levels of government, working with the county and the municipalities so that they can explain and talk and represent their constituencies to these very high-level federal and state-level bureaucrats that are going to get us the funding and get us these projects and our crucial infrastructure and corridors for economic revitalization at the end of the day.
My next question is about local government. Our chamber members interface mostly with city and county governments. How do you plan to support our local governments and improve intergovernment relationships?
Keep on doing what I've been doing. For the last 4 years, on most Fridays when we're in what they call pro forma, we don't have to be there, I come back home instead of staying in Topeka. I have visited all of our superintendents of schools. I have visited with our Chamber of Commerce from different locations. I go see my good friend, the mayor of Basehor, Dick Drennan. I come over and I see your city administrator. We lost a good one just a short time ago. He did a lot. I go into their office. They don't come to me. I go to school board meetings and I talk to these people and I listen to what they ask. I have met many times with different county commissioners, and I have produced legislation at their request. One involving the rural water districts came up this last year that was critical and about costs on getting bids. I wrote up what they gave me. I produced that. I submitted it. I carried that through committee. But I will tell you, I was very disappointed that not one of our county commissioners came to that hearing. And so then it languished below the line because I couldn't get local support. I will be there to talk to those people that run our governments. I promise you that. I will listen to them. I have them on speed dial. I remember one hearing on K through 12 education budget, and I got on something and I speed dialed to superintendent here in Leavenworth on a bill he was very passionate about. Your Leavenworth schools versus the military schools have a very difficult position. I told him what was up there. He told me what he needed, and I gave it to him. That's what I will do because I care about what the local people say.
Local and state government relationships. This is one of the things that also prompted me to run and to develop a politics of public service and public goods, because seeing state legislators undermine our county officials just galls me. It's a shame, it's a disgrace. And we all know what's going on. It should be nonpartisan. We shouldn't be here for that. We're all one team. So when it comes to like revenue neutral, telling someone's a tax and spend liberal because they want to provide services like mental health, fix the bridges, and do all that, the basic services, when someone's attacking that, they're attacking us. Because our government, local government, is us. No one attacks my county commissioner. That's our job, okay? That's our job. And that's what's cool about the county officials. I can go there and talk with them and see them and complain and do that, and then they teach me things about how government runs at the local level. But it is not the job of the legislature to cut them down, try to defund them. As in the old days, it was called starving the beast, and everyone knows this. So that's what gets me to say, how do we enable? We confer with our local governments to see what they need, what do they want. But let the people take care of that business when it comes down to the hard things as far as what we don't like. That's the people's business. So I prefer it that way. But also, we would work together and to find out what we can do as a community, as neighbors, and finding out what the needs are from their perspective as well as each individual's perspective. That's hard work. That's not easy, but it can be done, and we can do that. We've done it before, and that's all I want to restore is public service and the public good. Thank you.
So my wife and I have been doing business here in Leavenworth since 2006 when we opened our first little 19-seat restaurant. And I'll just tell you that sometimes local government is a great partner and sometimes local government stands in the way of progress. If you think that you're undertaxed, if you think that your legislature's job is to just hand the keys to these governments at the local level that have been doubling your property taxes every 7 years for recent memory, then I'm probably not your candidate. You probably need to vote for my opponent. But if you think that your legislators have a valid role in creating some guardrails to protect taxpayers, to protect homeowners from being taxed out of their homes, then I'm your man. And that's what I've been doing. I was proud to support Truth in Taxation, which restored accountability back to our property tax system. What used to happen is all of the local governments would keep the mill levy flat, sit on their hands when somebody complained, said, talk to the assessor, he's the guy who raised your taxes, knowing darn well that they could drop your the mill levy as much as the valuation went up or any percentage thereof and give you some property tax relief. Well, they can't do that anymore because I stood with the coalition that fought for accountability in our property tax system. Now they have to affirmatively raise their hand and say, yes, I want to raise taxes on all my neighbors, or the mill levy drops to provide us with some property tax relief. I've also fought for a lot of great local candidates that are in government now. Our school board's gone revenue neutral for 2 out of the last 3 years. I'm proud to have supported Vanessa Reed, who's now running for county commission, and beat tax and spend Vicky Cause to get that done. I want that to happen at the county. I want that to happen at every level of government.
Yeah. You know what would have lowered property taxes in our county is the local ad valorem tax reduction fund that was voted to go away. So you want to talk about the counties being the source of this increase in taxes. On January 11th, the day that I filed my candidacy, first I stopped at the Capitol before going to the Secretary of State's office, and I sat side by side with 2 of our county commissioners, our county register of deeds, and Richard Paz, who came up there and offered testimony, and that's Senator Pittman's bill, SB 196, and that was to make again, going back to what I said before, make the state follow their own damn laws. This was a law that's on the books that for 20 years, more than $4.3 billion was withheld at the state level, and there was reason to do so for some time. And then we fixed the problems, and then then we just got greedy, and then we got this attitude that the counties don't know what they're doing, and the county's fault for everything, and we got to protect you from the municipalities and the big bad people that you elected. You elected these people at your municipalities and your county government, and you have the power. If you don't think they're representing you right, then you can vote them out. And it shouldn't be your state legislators telling you that they're not doing a good enough job on your behalf. So that, again, what do we do to build up? What am I going to do? I'll say the same thing that Representative Johns. I'm going to keep doing what I've been doing. I go to the city commission meetings. I watch the county board of commissioners because I'm usually working when they meet. I go to the school board meetings. I raise my issues to those in power at the government levels. I've been appointed to the Juvenile Corrections Advisory Board by the Board of County Commissioners. I'm highly invested in this community. I love the relationships that I have with our local governing bodies, and I will continue to cultivate that, and I will listen to them, because they are the voice of the constituents of this community, as are the constituents themselves. So that's what I'll do to continue building those relationships. It's to respect those who govern at the lowest levels.
So I'm not here to stick up for my colleagues, but they can do that for themselves. But I would like to remind everybody, and I think you're right to bring up LAVTR, and there were bills on the table that did not have the elimination of LAVTR, and the governor vetoed all of them. So there were bipartisan bills on the table, one unanimous, that would have moved forward real tax relief. So we were held hostage by a governor and a handful, which is why I'm in this race, that eliminated LAVTR, but locally we're going to stand up here on a pulpit and tell you how good LAVTR is. We need to fight for that. And in the same breath, we're going to say, oh, let's go ahead and delete that, because you don't need that. We can manage your money better for you. So I do have an issue with that, and the only bill that the governor would move forward, and the minority hostages that held us hostage on, was the crappy little bill that we got after session. So that's me coming offline there for a second. So I also want to say I had a wonderful meeting earlier this week, the Government Affairs Committee, and they really talked about where our tax dollars go. And a little, trying to make light of a moment, we had city, county, schools all in a room talking about where all the tax dollars go. What was kind of funny or tongue-in-cheek was they all feel they're not the problem. So last time I checked, all of us are here because we have a concern about property tax, but they're not the problem. I'm not sure there's any other taxing entities. So that being said, I think my only takeaway in that is there needs to be some accountability, and there needs to be some conversation. There are needs that our community does have, and we need to go after that. But one thing that came out of that discussion, they feel that the legislature does not have their back, and especially at the county level, they don't have a seat at the table. We have significant issues that need to be dealt with, and we need to start at a local level for that. I appreciate your time.
Well, I couldn't have a closer relationship with at least one city commissioner, my wife. She's fantastic. And I'll tell you what, she'll keep me focused on local issues like nobody's business. I will say when it comes to, let's say we have a side-by-side tally of issues and constituent issues, her tally is 10 to 1 mine. 10, if not 20 to 1. What's that tell you? It tells you that local government matters. It tells you that local government deals with everyday life. We're here for property taxes. That's one of our issues, one of my issues that I've fought very, very hard and had some success. But we're also here for quality of life. We're here to educate our kids. We're here to have roads that don't have potholes. We're here to have our trash picked up. Realistically, though, I have built great relationships. Dick Drennan's a fantastic mayor down there. We've got the folks down in Lansing I was just working with on that historic society. Had great success. They've just decided to support the prison as well with $26,000. And that was because I could intervene and talk with them and build on those relationships and say, hey, look, people have donated for 20 years towards a project like this. Your hotel tax could really help them out as an investment in your community. And they saw that. That's what I bring to the table, is an ability to work with local, county, state, as well as federal folks. And there is a war on our local governments across the state right now. I'm here to tell you. It's run by some of the leadership in the Senate. It's when you have that kind of power with people who can rubber stamp in the Senate whatever they want, you get what Wichita wants, not what Leavenworth wants. I'm glad to represent you guys. I'm glad to have the conversations I have. I am the chair of the unified, or the delegation of Wyandotte, which is the unified government. I jumped all the way in that particular area of my constituency to learn about that. And the reason is because local government matters. It's where people's lives are lived. Thanks.
Thank you, candidates. I think we have enough time for some questions from the audience. As you ask the question, would you please focus on the question, make it a question that applies to all candidates?
I think most of you said that you were small business owners. I know with the truth in taxation, everything, the tax lid was removed, and that tax lid had protection for inflation. And so now that we're in revenue neutral, we're asking the cities and municipal governments to stay flat and not grow when we know things are getting more expensive. So as business owners, I would like each of you to commit to staying revenue neutral and not gaining any profit for the next year. Will you commit to that, or just talk about? Oh, I'm sorry. What's your question? What good has truth in taxation actually done in revenue neutral, and what protections from inflation and all the other things you all talk about over and over and over again? What are you actually going to do for the people?
Yep. Okay, sorry. Great question. Revenue neutral is an interesting topic. I'll tell you this. In my opinion, budget neutral is what we should be shooting for. Our ins and our outs need to match. Basic budgeting. That wasn't happening at the state level. We were not doing that. We were borrowing money from different places that we could do that. Revenue neutral came about, I think it was Kansas Policy Institute or something else that was put together by one person, said, hey, wait a second, we want it to be revenue neutral. Fine for 1 year. Politically, it makes sense, right? I'm not going to raise anything, but we have inflation. This could actually be feasible as a policy. We should probably fix it. We need to account for the inflation rate or the CPI, the Consumer Price Index, inside of that formula so that we can account for, with that bridge, when we first estimated it, I think the costs have gone up by 20 or 25% because of the increase in inflation. So, well, I don't know. There are a lot of different reasons why that is, and I have different opinions. Thanks for the comment from the audience. I think we're only going to have 1 minute on the questions, right? You said 1 minute? 2 minutes, okay. So, I think that we should commit to changing the formula so that this truth and transparency, what's it called again? Truth and taxation, has a CPI in it, accounts for inflation, allows our governments to invest appropriately in the resources we have to account for increased needs of wages, increased costs in materials to fix our roads and those other materials. Then it becomes more practical. Then it becomes something where we can actually say, this makes sense, instead of just rubber stamping one meeting and then right in the same meeting saying, okay, now let's go to the budget and have the same hearing we just had a minute ago. I've been in those meetings and it just doesn't make a lot of sense right now. We do need to fix that particular law. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm not sure that was a good question, but I think I understand the foundation of it. What's different, when you have to raise your hand and tell the folks that you're going to take money out of their pocket, I think it's okay to do that. As a small business owner, many of us in here, we don't have the luxury of raising taxes if we can't make ends meet. We have to take out a note, we have to hire, we have to fire, we have to make strong, tough decisions in a moment. And what I've done when I do bring in additional revenue is I expand assets, which is what most small businesses do. It's common sense. I need new trucks. I need new used trucks. I never buy new. But when I'm looking to add assets to hire more people, it's what small businesses do. So I think when we look at that, I'm going to make as much as I can. The first 6 years, I didn't take a paycheck. Put it all back into the business. I was fortunate to be successful, so I was able to do that. So I put it all back into the business. And that's why we were able to be successful, and that's why we're at where we're at today. So I've been a partner in our space, typically behind the scenes, helping folks get elected. Now I'm out front. I'm not great at it, but I'm working at it. But I'll tell you what, I'm going to have conviction. I'm going to fight. I'm not afraid of a tough conversation, even with my own leadership, if I have the opportunity to get there. There's right and wrong, and can we afford to do it? And when I look at it in simple ways to look at that, I think it's okay to be revenue neutral. I think if they want to raise it, raise your hand and tell us why. It's pretty simple. Of course, they don't want the heat. They don't want to have the tough conversations. It's time to have the tough conversations. I know a lot up here don't mind those conversations. I'm not taking the full 2 minutes. I appreciate your time.
I'm not a small businessman. I don't have a business. I've worked law enforcement. I was a teacher. I've served on a school board, Piper School Board, part of what I now represent. And I do know how it is. A lot of times we don't want to share the information, and that's what this bill did. If you'll think back a couple of years ago out in Tonganoxie, we had an issue with a very costly increase in the library. You know, that's a governmental agency, and they raised the taxes for the people living in Tonganoxie. Nobody could figure it out. It wasn't the county. Now, when they have to have truth and be upright about it. Now, my own school district, Baser, made a mistake. Their school superintendent, who left shortly after this, failed to take care of that particular issue, and so Baser, in need of building money and et cetera, could not do that. So this year, they have to come out and raise taxes. They also told us that with the new bond issue, which was very expensive, it would not raise their taxes. But it did. Why? Because your home valuations went up. As long as those home valuations go up 5, 6, 7, 8%, you're going to pay more taxes. So this truth is important to getting it established, that people have to bring it out to the community. Thank you.
So a few simple notes. Budgets drive the tax revenues that are required. So any municipality government should have hearings whether they're going to lower, increase, or keep it neutral, period. And if that law doesn't exist, then we need to amend this revenue neutral and just make it so. But most do that, and they should, again, whether they raise it or not. Now, just imagine the way this revenue neutral is used, like a cudgel is, okay, imagine we're in 2054. Yes, we've made sure that we've kept the budget from 2024 the same to 2054. Can you imagine that? You can't, because that would be ridiculous. And also with CPI, well, governments buy different things. They buy materials, they buy commodities, big equipment, capital expenses. Are those going away? Probably not. So they have to stay ahead with the times. Governments themselves do not stand outside market forces. We all do. We all feel it, and they don't. It's ridiculous. But it's our job to keep the pressure on them to make sure, just look at it in terms of investment. Where are we investing, and what kind of return do we want? Good roads, safe schools, good schools. A separate issue, I know we got some school folks here, but that's really expensive. And then the county gets shot in the face because they're the ones who print the paper that tells you how much money they need. And so they're at a disadvantage. If the state printed that, yeah, we'd be all in Topeka right now. So just think about that. Think about the politics of printing and whose responsibility it is for putting it together, and say, hey, we're just what's technically called a taxing subdivision. County takes about 30% of mine. The school went up to 50 plus, and a few other things. By the way, the library one is the best investment ever because I'm a heavy library user. It's awesome. For $60, I've saved thousands of dollars. Just FYI plug for the library because it's awesome. But remember, a guy like me, I've got the Combined Arms Research Library. That's what they don't tell you. That's free. The rest of you, eat cake? No. Support our public libraries.
So if, I don't know about you, but my property taxes have gone up a little bit more than the rate of inflation. As a matter of fact, I crunched the numbers the other day. They've been going up at 5 times the rate of inflation for the last 20 years. So if our local governments came in and said, we're only going to raise your property taxes at the rate of inflation, you would not hear a peep from Pat Proctor. Leavenworth County, I have to look at my phone because I don't have the numbers off the top of my head. Leavenworth County this year wanted to raise your property taxes 10%. I think the inflation rate's like 3%. They ended up raising it 9%. You're welcome. The Leavenworth School District wanted to raise your property taxes 4.3%, which is a great number because usually it's double digits. Every other year have been double digits. They're sitting on a $15 million surplus. $15 million surplus, and they wanted to raise your property taxes 4.3% because of folks who fought, who came and made their voices heard, and because of great legislators like Karen Overby, or great school board members like Karen Overby and Vanessa Reed, they remained revenue neutral for the second time in 3 years. And they still got their $15 million. Okay, they've still got their reserves. They're going to be just fine. So I want to take a second because I've got a little bit of time to talk about this LAVTR. Your county commissioners use your tax dollars to send you a letter saying, don't blame us for raising your taxes. It's all the state's fault because they won't give us this money that none of us have ever gotten because none of us were in government 20 years ago the last time they paid LAVTR. The reason they don't pay it is because it would cost the state $500 million every year. And what it would do is it would start paying the counties every year $4 million. That's 1 year's property tax increases. What will we do next year? They go right back to raising your property taxes, and the state would be on the hook forever for $500 million.
Okay. So the question, revenue neutral. All right, so in the words of one of my fellow Leavenworth County business owners, who's a staunch Republican, very successful business owner, generational business owner, that is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Fuel's gone up, concrete's gone up, asphalt's gone up, internet services have gone up, health insurance has gone up, everything has gone up. But go ahead, just stay right where you're at. So what are we what are we not going to pave the roads? What are we not going to fix the buildings that are crumbling? We're not going to, have more programs for our schools. Something's got to give. I mean, you can't have increasing price of goods and then tell people to spend the same amount of money. So no, my business is not going to be revenue neutral this year, in large part because my healthcare costs are insane. Say that. So, not something we've talked about, but really goes through everything else that we've discussed today is the fact that we're one of 10 states that doesn't have Medicaid expansion. We don't have accessible health care. It is not a free market. Blue Cross Blue Shield holds 75% of the market in this state, and we treat it as if it is not a monopolistic public good. It should be regulated. It should be treated like the public good it is, because it is crushing our small businesses, those that actually provide health care, and most can't. Most of them can't. All right, so this idea that, we would expect our government to stay revenue neutral in an inflationary environment when every single one of their inputs, everything they are buying has gone up, is ridiculous. They can't possibly, your services are going down. I mean, we've seen it at every level. The discussions we had at this, what do you want to lose? Do you want to lose the theater? Do you want to lose the pool? Do you want to lose this parking lot that we're just going to let crumble into oblivion? So, no, I'm sorry, I can't commit to that, but thank you.
My question is not about property tax or small businesses getting any breaks. My question is about a COLA for KPERS retirees. Amen. It has been more than 27 years since KPERS retirees have received a COLA. That's shameful. That's absolutely shameful. In light of the fact that the legislature will receive a very, very healthy increase come 2025 with an automatic COLA built in. What are each of you willing to do, to commit to doing, to help the leadership in Topeka see that this is an issue that needs to be addressed?
Absolutely, I will fight for that COLA for KPERS employees at all levels of KPERS 1, 2, and 3, and not one that you got to pay for yourself, like is in KPERS 3, I believe. But no, it's absolutely crucial, and I don't know how you can how you can incentivize people to get into government without something like that. Listen, being in the military for 21 years was a huge sacrifice for me and my family, but I knew what was at the end of that. I knew a fully vested retirement with cost of living adjustments for the rest of my life, with health care for the rest of my life, and that gave me the security to make the sacrifice to be substantially underpaid for a lot of the careers. I know a lot of state employees are too, but both my parents are retired teachers. And the reason why that they are safe and secure and are going to be okay for the rest of their life is because of that strong pension that they got under the New York State, public education, under their system that has a very generous COLA, and made sure that those people are taken care of. And that's how they were able to recruit people like my sister, who's also an educator, right? Giving them that sense of security. So absolutely, I think it is a travesty, and it was shocking when I found that out, and that it comes up at the doors. One of the most frequent things, if it's not property taxes, we have so many state employees in our district, in the 41st district, and that comes up over and over again. So absolutely, I will dedicate myself to seeing that happen.
So first I want to say I didn't vote for that pay raise. My opponent supports the pay raise. She told a group on February 19th that she supported the pay raise. I do not support that pay raise. I voted against that pay raise. I spoke against it on the floor twice, once last year and once this year. But I have been a supporter of COLA. And when I was part of a coalition, we brought an amendment to the floor. When they brought a big KPERS bill to the floor, I voted for it. I believe, I don't want to speak for you, but I believe you voted for it as well. All the Leavenworth legislators voted for it, and it got defeated. And I'll tell you, I'm going to keep at it. This is one of my biggest disappointments that I've not been able to get done, because a big part of keeping folks here, because we have a ton of retired state employees here in our district. A big part of keeping them here is making it affordable to live here, and a big part of that is giving you that COLA, which you guys haven't had for over 20 years. I mean, it's just criminal. 27, not that we're counting, but 27. Yeah, something else that I've been trying to do with KPERS, because I've got another minute. Since I've been in the legislature, every year I've filed a bill to add corrections officers, or move corrections officers from KPERS for corrections to KPERS for police and fire, because their retirement sucks, okay? It sucks. And they have to be 60 to begin getting their retirement. Most of them don't live to 60 if you look at the demographics. They need a retirement that pays more and pays earlier, so that they get the retirement that they deserve. And it's not just about the folks who are getting ready to retire. It's about getting more people into corrections and into our prison, protecting each other, protecting us, and protecting those in their charge, because they don't have enough people to keep themselves safe, let alone those inmates or us. And so we got the wildlife and parks folks added to KPNF last year. They were the last folks before corrections officers, so I'm very hopeful we can get it done this year.
If elected, I would fully support KPERS and find out why are they not investing that soundly. But also, you see a phenomena out here in the modern economy here that the privatization of retirement seems to be failing. 401ks, right? Because we're too busy trying to pull it out for everyday expenses. So it hasn't turned out. Another broken promise of this. Again, markets are necessary but not sufficient. So we have to support folks such as yourself with that. And again, as Aimee talked about, vested pensions, that's a great benefit. But we need a benefit for folks so we have more folks who are not colonels running for office. You need to think about that. I think that might be a good thing. Right? Yeah, really, I didn't plan on doing this, but I wish it was one of you guys instead. But that's what I mean. We're heavy public sector. We have to count for that. And maybe that's why they don't pay attention. And back to the pay raise, that's another thing. I wouldn't necessarily be against that because then you have working class folks who are legislative representatives versus someone who is independently wealthy. It has to be from the folks and everyday folk that can do the legislation, survive on that paycheck, and do the people's work. That would be a good thing, I think. So there's a positive to that. And also, they are not subject to getting captured by special interests like the American Legislative Exchange Council, who drafts all this model legislation like revenue neutral for them. It's pay to play politics, folks. And if you're independent of that, then you can be an independent thinker. Thank you.
Hold on to your lug nuts. It's time for an overhaul. We need COLA for KPERS. I live on a KPERS pension, folks. I downsized because it's nothing. I don't get any cost of living. I can't live on it. My dad, my sisters, several family members, teachers, people in government, and they tell me in Topeka, well, we can't do it. And I'm going to tell you who it was. It was the chairman of the retirement committee, Hoheisel, and our speaker. Well, we're not bringing it up. They told me very specifically. I was very angry in a K through 12 meeting. They asked us, well, how are we going to get teachers? I said, you've got to change KPERS. You can't get people to come here and teach. My granddaughter graduated last spring, top of her class, to teach in high school in Illinois. I said, don't come to Kansas. Illinois is better. And that really hurt. When I have to say Illinois is better than Kansas, what are we going to do? You're killing our education. You're not getting the teachers your kids deserve. And they keep stonewalling us. I will fight. I guarantee you, you'll hear there'll be some rounds fired in the Capitol. Thank you.
I'm not going to insult you. You say you're starting to sound like a Democrat, all right? Look, Ernie Claudel is the retirement person. He'll tell you I'm one of the forefront of fighting for what's a COLA, cost of living allowance. When our retirees retire, they get a certain amount, almost like a revenue neutral number, and they're expected to live on it the whole life. And hopefully they live a long, luxurious life, but it gets tough when it's that fixed income that never increases. We don't need diet COLA, we need an actual COLA. What we get are conversations about diet COLA, but you heard what happens. The leadership, the Kansas Chamber, the AFP, which is dead set against this, are waging a war on state employees, basically. Is it a war? A lot of folks call it the deep state at the state level, call it the swamp, give it all kinds of insults. I'm telling you what, these are our neighbors who do their best to work to our betterment, do their best to help, whether it's through education, through its unemployment type situations, whether it's doing state highway patrol stuff. They do a job for the state, and we cannot demonize them. I'm a big supporter of it. I've proposed bills. In the Senate, you can almost hear it on the mics. I don't know if it picks it up, but the senators across the way say, never, not on my watch. Not on my watch will we have this happen. And we can afford it, folks. Even if it's a one-time COLA, we could afford it. We could have afforded it this year. We've proposed it. It's shut down. It's not brought up. It's controlled by that leadership. It's a shame. It's a dying shame. I fight for it. I have fought for it. We can build a bit broader coalition, but when you're not in the supermajority and you have a very dead-set leadership team against that particular idea, it's very, very hard to do. I would love to see us also bring Tier 3, which is what we're at now to save money, up to Tier 2. If you're not in state government, that doesn't make any sense to you, but I hope we can do that in the next couple of years.
Yeah, I won't take as long, and hopefully you're not talking about real rounds, but we know that's not. So I know he wasn't. So, I'm fortunate to be raised by a mom who spent almost 4 decades teaching in the public school system. Mark this date, 100% of everybody up here agrees that you should receive a COLA. Let's see how fast this moves through and how much conviction everybody has to fight that fight. I know somebody has some conviction, and he might have a heart attack up there, but we're going to get him. We're going to be fighting the fight. But I do think that there's a lot of agreement here, a lot of different perspectives. I like a 401k. That's all I have. So they've done well in the last 10 years. So but I do feel that if you're sitting there, you should have increases that go along. And from a COLA perspective, I don't know why we wouldn't have that. I'll tell you, we'll have the fight, we'll have the argument, and we'll have that. I won't be shying away from my convictions. So I appreciate that, and I think we're all in agreement. If we had a sheet of paper, we can get everybody to sign it. But you know what? It was a good question. Thank you.
Candidates, thank you very much.
Here you go. You have mine.
We're going to use closing arguments or closing comments. So you got 1 minute each. Aimee, would you start, please? Would you pass it down?
I'll keep it very short. I appreciate. We got to get it on record, though. Well, I'll keep it short. So I appreciate everybody's patience tonight, showing up. Your evening, we're past 7 o'clock. But again, thank you for coming. Thank you for showing interest in your local government, your state government. And again, absolutely, I dedicate to myself to fight for representation for all of the constituents of District 41, to build those links between local government and state government, and continue to find solutions and get real results to real problems that are facing the people of the 41st District.
We're at the height of campaign season. Few weeks, we're going to be early voting. Before you know it, it's all going to be over. And this is when all of the hot button stuff starts to come up. And, everybody's going to try to distract you with, all these national issues. And I'm just going to tell you, I'm as accessible as any legislator that I can remember in this district. I have a town hall every month. I put my phone number that goes to me and my email that goes to me on everything that I publish. It's all over my Facebook page. I get calls all the time from folks in our district with all kinds of problems that some of them are state issues, some of them are city issues, some of them are national issues. And I help them with all of them. If I can't help with it, if I can't work with a state agency, then I connect them with somebody who can help them. You already know what I'm going to do if you send me back. You already know, because you've been watching me do it for 4 years. I'm going to fight to lower your property taxes. I'm going to do everything in my power to keep your family safe, do something to mitigate this fentanyl crisis and this crime crisis we have up in my neighborhood in North Leavenworth. I live 5 blocks from the gate. And I'm going to go right back to work bringing jobs and opportunity back here to Leavenworth. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, and I'd like to thank my colleagues. It's been a pleasure. This has been pretty awesome. But I just like you to consider that if we keep voting the same way, we're going to get the same results, okay? So in a sense, I'm running against the supermajority, not Tim. I like Tim. We actually get along. So victory would even be a change of behavior at our legislative level, too. And that is on you. So I would hope you consider that. at the only price that the supermajority is going to listen to, other than a 3-martini lunch with a lobbyist, is, hey, they voted differently. We ought to do something differently. So thank you for your support, and I hope to see you all out in November.
Three martini? Oh, I've never had a martini. These people are good people. They care about their government. They got up, they stand up, they spend their own time and money for you. I respect everybody here. And Richard's right, he's become my friend. It's kind of strange, and I do listen to him because he's very knowledgeable. But I think I offer some very special things with my time, my 4 years building up. This is going to be a finesse game, well, except for KPERS. We've got to talk, we've got to be diplomats, we've got to work together, and we can do it. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Tim. So yeah, thank you guys. Thank you guys. Thank you guys for coming out. This is what democracy is. The candidates here, we are up here. We are ready to serve. Now, Jeff, J-E-F-F, I've got 2 Fs. They stand for something. I'm going to add 1 more. I will not say what Jeff's Fs stand for. I do not know. But I can talk about what mine stand for. Family, freedom, and future. I'm fighting for my family. We just put in child tax care credits. We're fighting for their education, that they're fully funded no matter where they live, our kids. We just eliminated the Social Security tax for our elderly population, our grandparents, and even our parents. Freedom. I want the freedom for my children to not have the government dictate their health care decisions. I want the freedom in Kansas to participate in medical marijuana to help with cancer symptoms. And I want a future where we invest and we build and we have a positive environment where we collaborate with local, state, and private industry to build up industry like we've done before and to build our educated workforce. God bless our city, our country. God bless you guys. Thank you.
So I appreciate everyone coming tonight. So there's definitely differences. I feel like it's time for a change, and hopefully you feel that too. So the pain that you're feeling, pain that I'm feeling, whether it's you're personally, in your taxes, in your other situations, and I have a couple issues. One is, adversarial countries buying land within the state of Kansas. We didn't talk about that and how that gets, in that particular topic. We have differences of opinion. Within 100 miles of a military base, I don't think China should be buying land. So there's differences of opinion. So whether it's business taxes, property taxes, growing businesses in our community, which I have done, which we continue to do, I look forward to continuing that, helping our local folks in office continue to grow their space and helping our community move forward. So I would look forward to your vote, and I appreciate your time tonight.
Candidates, thank you very much for coming, for being so frank. I thought you all did a marvelous job in being candid. So thank you so much for coming out and participating. Thank you for coming out and participating. Thank you for supporting candidates. We have 2 more events this election cycle on October 16th at the Crossroads Church down on Highway 7. We will have the Leavenworth County Candidate Forum. So that's our next event. And then on Friday, October 25th, we will have a meet and greet at Wilcott Brewery. So please mark your calendars and join us. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. Be safe going home. Thank you.